At the age of 4, my twin brother and I arrived at my grandmother's house. There are many versions of how we came to live with her. My favorite, because it comes from a place of love, is my grandparents received a call from foster care. My granddad insisted they pick us up. I would spend my former years growing up learning to be seen and not heard, considered shy and polite, also well mannered. By the time I was 8, I was molested by a close family member who, of course, told me I couldn't tell anyone. This was the beginning of me losing my voice. By 12, I was relentlessly bullied for my presence. I looked very much like I was a few steps behind the culture. I had the 80s Jerry curl, bad shoes. The 90s generation had moved on to the fan ponytail with bangs and great shoes. I loved learning, but I hated school. I managed somehow to find two things while there: Miss Ruth, my funny, disheveled art teacher, and Earl, my 24-year-old boyfriend. When asked what I wanted to be growing up, I always answered an architect. It combined my love for drawing and math. Earl eventually came up to the school, and Miss Ruth saw him. This tiny little man, I remember her jokes about my little old man. The kids at school saw him too, adding fuel to the fire. Earl didn't last long. By 13, I was able to travel around on the local bus with the caveats I believe everyone in my generation had. I had to be home before the street lights came on. I guess I hadn't properly learned to time the buses. Someday, I attempted to go to the mall. I prayed to get home in time. Unfortunately, I saw those streetlights come on from the bus. I rushed in the house hoping I could explain that I wanted to be on time. My grandmother met me with rage. I had managed to get to the hallways and was hit with a stick. A wood slack, actually. I was knocked into the bathroom where I fell into a tub. A few lashes later, I was able to run right back out. I saw my twin brother's face, but I just kept running. It would be a few days later before I was returned to her home. That summer, Miss Ruth passed away during childbirth. I finished school there, and over the next few years, I tried unsuccessfully to live with both my father and my mother separately. One ending in a CPS case, and the other was an attempted SA, which I had grown accustomed to. By 16, I was officially an adult. I did, however, find some schoolmates that would teach me survival skills. I did know how to cook. I learned how to keep my hair braided. I picked up a New York accent and eventually visited the city, started working catering events, and had a baby by 18. Oh, and I had better shoes. By now, we were all wearing Timberland boots and baggy jeans with the baby doll shirts. Nonetheless, I was still polite and quiet. I was affectionately called Giggles, the smiley one in the group. It was always easy to find someone to be my voice. I wouldn't return to get my GED until I was 22 years old. Also got my license to drive around the same time. Motivated by my desire to have a regular job and a life with my kid, I was able to get both on my first try. Of course, you can imagine the lifestyle I kept: money, men, alcohol, and weed. Sums it up. It was all old and overrated. I found myself in a series of odd jobs, clerical work mostly, the most pivotal being KB Homes. Although I was a file clerk, I could read the site plans, remembering my classes in mechanical drafting back when I wanted to be an architect. I also saw the contracts, dollar signs. I loved that job. Although it didn't pay, it sparked a flame. I only handled the files and made copies, but it was exciting to see how much everyone made on the deal. Getting fired was handled so corporate. The manager requested that I call the temp office. The temporary agency asked that I stop by. They simply told me I was not a good fit and handed me a box. That was new to me. In the hospitality industry, you have some sort of falling out. You know why you lost your job. Ever since then, I know if they tell you to call the temp office, go ahead and collect your things. By then, my husband was willing to pay for my real estate class. He was eager to do anything to get me out of his hair. He found me at 20 between housing situations. He needed my help to stay in the US, and I needed, well, everything. So he said if it led me to get money, he would do it. This time I needed to pass the state exam to get licensed. I was so nervous I slept with the course recordings playing. Again, I passed on my first attempt. I couldn't afford to retake this test. I soon divorced, and friends similarly left. Getting my real estate license didn't mean much to my lifestyle at the time. I was divorced, single mom, living in the hood with a car, and on and off again employment. Somehow that was the life, the normal life I fought for. I was lonely, not close to my family, but God had a plan. I worked more low paying jobs until one day I got a call, another temporary agency, where they used these magic words. We believe you are a good fit for a mortgage position. I'm driving back from Maryland, where I was considering moving, regretting the trip because of a blizzard, as I listened to this woman read back the highlights of my resume. Number one on the list, my real estate license that I hadn't used. She went on to tell me the pay would be $3 more an hour than I had ever made. This job was with one of the biggest banks in the country. I spent the next 5 years there, starting in file setup to processing, eventually to become a mortgage underwriter. Still being the type of person to read all the letters and look up all the houses. I didn't see numbers. I saw people in situations in real estate. It was towards the end of my time there, an older white guy became my manager and told me I was the lowest paid underwriter in the entire company. He learned then that I learned then that I actually needed to negotiate my salary. Being polite, quiet, and well mannered yielded me the ability to fly under the radar and voted Best Smile Award from my coworkers, but not equal pay. He adjusted my pay as much as he could. My grandmother would say, "You can't win for losing." I left there after my family grew. Now in my 30s, with three new babies, and my West African husband, a business. I took a year off for the first time. I had to present myself. See, in events, I could let the event be the focus. In the corporate world, it's best to blend in. Somehow I had chosen African print, no less. The loudest prints and patterns and bright colors. Also, around this time, I was introduced to a friend called Isaac, my East African friend. Isaac was planning an event featuring culture from around the world. Someone in his camp thought I would be a good fit, and I was. Isaac was the type of person who will often put a microphone in your hand and leave you to explain things or provide instructions. And I didn't even know I had a fear of public speaking. We called it shy, being soft spoken. Remember, I was Giggles, the quiet one. The first time I attempted to share a poem I had written in public, people complimented how passionate I was, not realizing I was having a full blown panic attack on stage. So, between marketing Ghana Style, my West African fashion line, and fundraising for his nonprofit, Miles of Great Hopes, I have learned to breathe between sentences, organize my thoughts, and deliver the message. Today, I'm here to deliver this message to you. As you meet people in the world, you are meeting a person on their path. Imagine if we all carried labels above our heads. Mind you, mine would read abandoned, runaway, and dropout, who found her way with a small voice, a big smile, and a heart to match. Terribly afraid of heights and learning to have a voice. Accents contributions are my grandmother's southern drawl, my street parents' New York slang, my husband's West African tongue, and no, I am not losing weight due to my Hashimoto's hypothyroidism. So please be kind. Thank you.